Hi, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for watching and for subscribing. And if you're just visiting, please consider subscribing. So in today's video, we're going to talk about 10 things that I think you should know before starting a fragrance collection, or 10 things that I wish I knew before starting my collection. And I've thought about doing this type of video for quite some time, but for some reason it always got pushed back. And I've seen a few people do these types of videos. I can't remember who exactly now, but recently I saw Joel the Nose do this type of video, and it kind of reminded me that I've wanted to do this for a long time, and so I decided to finally film it today. By the way, are you watching Joel? If you're not, I'm going to link his channel in a description. I really enjoy his channel, so I definitely recommend that you go and check it out. So here's my top 10 things that you need to know before starting your fragrance collection. Number 1, learn and try. What I mean here is learn what things smell like. Learn what notes mean and what each note smells like. Try and sample as many perfumes as you can. Try to figure out what style of perfumery you enjoy the most. You know, do you enjoy floral scents? Do you enjoy gourmand scents? Do you enjoy citrusy scents, etc.? Just learn and try. I think that's always number 1. Number 2, I'm going to call it taste change, and be prepared for that. Your tastes will change as you try more and more fragrances. Your taste will change. Your nose will mature. And so maybe things that you really loved yesterday, in a few months, you might not like at all. And the other way around, if you really hated a note or particular style of perfumery, with time, you might learn to love it. I'll give you an example. I sampled Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille years ago and I absolutely hated it. And when I sampled it again a year or so ago, totally loved it. And I think this happened because my nose simply matured. I've tried so many fragrances, you know, by the time I tried it the second time, that my tastes have changed. So be prepared for your taste to change, for your nose to mature, to maybe end up not liking fragrances that you loved at the beginning of your journey. Number 3, buying fragrances. You know, before I started getting seriously into this hobby, I had no idea that fragrances could be purchased anywhere else other than department stores. Obviously now I barely shop at department stores. I very rarely pay full price for fragrances. I always look at discounter sites. I always look in some type of Facebook groups or other fragrance groups, because you can always find better prices there. So I would strongly recommend, I'm sorry to retailers, but they just overcharge. The fragrances there are too expensive. And yes, sometimes you can't find them anywhere else other than at retailer or at a original website. Well, then yes, if that's what you really want and you can't find it anywhere else, then of course purchase it. But always look on discounter sites first. Don't pay retail price for fragrances. Number 4, blind buying. Now, this one is a little bit controversial, and I think some of you will disagree with me, but I think it will be completely hypocritical of me to say don't blind buy. So I'm going to say experiment with blind buying, but I have 2 caveats here. Number 1, only start blind buying after you learned and tried, after you have some understanding of what things smell like, what notes you like, what notes you don't like, after you had a chance to try and learn at least a little bit. Only then start blind buying. And number 2, I would say blind buy designer fragrances. Do not blind buy niche. Why? Well, one, because designer fragrances are less expensive. Niche is typically much more expensive. So if you really hate it, well, you just wasted a lot of money. Number two, I think it's easier to blind buy designers just because most of the time, these fragrances are simpler. They're easier to guess by looking at the notes. Whereas in niche, very often what happens is that you look at the notes, you think you understand what the fragrance will smell like, and then you get it and it's completely different. So I say experiment with blind buying, but only do it after you have at least some understanding of what things smell like and what you like, and preferably blind buy designers, not niche. Number 5, curate your collection. Try to build a well-rounded, curated collection so that you have fragrances for any occasion, for any weather, for any season. Try to have fragrances in different categories. For example, I love gourmands. This is my favorite category of fragrances, but I don't want to have a collection that is just all gourmands. I want to have other styles of perfumery as well. Again, for example, florals are difficult for me, but I still try to find florals that work for me because there are those florals out there. So my suggestion is curate your collection. Don't just buy fragrances just to buy or buy just one style of fragrances. I think you want to have well-selected, curated collection. So that's what I would do. Number 6, fragrance reviewers and influencers. Now, I think we all watch YouTube, watch other creators, we read reviews on Fragrantica, we listen to what others have to say. That all helps us in our purchasing decisions. But I think we have to be careful here. Find reviewers that you can really trust. And still, even with those reviewers, take their opinion with a grain of salt, because we all have different noses. We all have different body chemistry. We all perceive notes in different ways. Just because a fragrance smells one way to someone, even someone that you trust, it might smell very differently to you. So don't just find someone that you trust, but also find, let's call it your fragrance twin, someone that has very similar tastes to yours. You watched enough of their videos or you've read enough of their reviews and you know that they really enjoy similar fragrances to you. You can see that they perceive many of the fragrances in a similar way to yours. Then you can really take their opinion and base your purchase on that. So don't just take anyone's word. Really do proper research and really only take word of those that you trust and that you have a similar taste with. Number 7, buy fragrances for the right reasons. What I mean here is that don't just buy fragrances because they're very popular or because they're very hyped up. Buy them because you really want to have them, or because you've tried them and you really love them, or because, you're thinking of a blind buy, but you really think you're going to love it. Buy it because of that. Don't buy it because of the hype. For me personally, I typically don't like the hype. If fragrances are hyped up, I really try to stay away from them. This is what happened with, let's say, Jean Paul Gaultier La Belle. I've resisted that fragrance for a long time just because there was so much hype around it. Now, when I finally purchased it, yeah, it was great. I love it. I loved it when I purchased it. I still love it. The hype was real. But that's not always the case. There is another example of fragrance that has been talked about a lot, is Libre from YSL. And no matter how many people talk about it, I know based on the notes, and then eventually I was able to try it, that this is not for me. I will not like this fragrance, so I don't care how many people hype it up, how many people love it. I know that it's not a fragrance for me. So buy your fragrances for the right reason. Number 8, and it is kind of related, use fragrances for the right reasons. Use fragrances because you love how they smell, because they make you feel good, because they lift up your mood, or because they relax you, because whatever the reason is, but wear fragrances for yourself. You know, we all make these somewhat silly videos, you know, most complimented fragrances that will make men fall in love with you or women fall in love with you, fragrances that will make him beg, whatever these silly topics are, you know, and it's fun to watch those videos, but take them again with a grain of salt, you know. In real life, no, that's not going to happen, you know. Nobody's gonna go crazy over you because of the fragrance that you're wearing. At least I don't believe that, you know. And don't wear a fragrance just because you think, oh, I'm gonna get so many compliments with it. I mean, yes, if you get a compliment, it's a nice bonus, but do you really want that to be your sole reason for wearing a fragrance? Again, I think many of you might disagree with me, but I strongly believe that you need to wear fragrance for yourself. This is something that you do for yourself to make you feel good, to lift up your mood, whatever else. Don't wear it for these other silly reasons. And so we're left with 2 more, and I think these are really big ones. Number 9 is quality over quantity. I think many of us collectors fall into this hole where when we first start collecting, we just want to buy as much as we can. We want to have so many fragrances. We want to try absolutely everything. And you know what often happens? I've seen it, this happened to me, and I've seen it happen with many others. Eventually, we declutter most of these fragrances. You know, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the fragrances that I purchased initially when I first started collecting, they're gone. I don't have many of them, you know, because I was really so much after numbers. But don't be so much after numbers, be after quality, you know. And some people say, oh, this fragrance is really expensive, I can't afford it. Let's say a Xerjoff fragrance, I can't afford it. But you know, instead of buying, let's say, I don't know, 2 or 3 designer fragrances, let's say 2 or 3 Valentinos, whatever, this is just an example, save up and buy one Xerjoff, you know. You can afford it that way. Don't be after quantity, be after quality. And number 10. I really couldn't come up with a sort of clever title for this one. So I'm going to call it Look and Think Ahead. And what I mean here is that this hobby is going to suck you in. This is like a dark rabbit hole that you're falling in. It's really going to happen to most of us who sort of get the bug to collect, who really get obsessed with fragrances. I think it happens to all of us. So think ahead, you know, you're most likely going to run out of space. You know, I've expanded my fragrance space 3 times already, you know, because I never thought that my collection will go this big original. You know, I thought I'm going to buy this one little shelf that's going to be more than enough for me. Well, guess what? It's not. Your collection is going to continue expanding. Be prepared that you're going to have these huge, long, never-ending wish lists. You know, the more you try, the more you want to try, because there's so many amazing fragrances out there. You know, just when you buy 5 fragrances from your wish list and you think, whew, I'm done, I don't have anything else on it. Yeah, there are 10 new ones that are going to be added to your wish list. So your wish list is never going to end. It's just going to keep growing. You're always going to want to try new fragrances. Like I said, the more you try, the more you want to try. So you're going to, you know, want to sample or buy, or whichever way you decide to do it, but you're going to want to try more and more. So be prepared. This hobby is going to suck you in. It's an expensive hobby. So, you know, spend your money wisely. I'm never going to tell anyone how to spend their money. We all have our budgets. We know what we can and cannot do, but be prepared that this is going to happen. So there you go. These are my 10 things that I think are important to know when starting a fragrance collection. Would love to know what you think about these and what are some points that are important in your opinion. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please remember to give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!